Where are you
Yeah.
based?
Oh, I'm based in Andorra. You know, it's like a super tiny country between France and Spain. And like
Ah,
I've been here for a while. Right now I'm in Spain, just because of well, being in the mountains for the coronavirus has been pretty long. So now here, right in the bay, like on the beach, is much more comfortable for for a couple of weeks at least. How about you?
yeah, I'm based in Belgium.
That's good.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
are
but
things there?
well, it's already been like few months now. I'm working
Uh-huh.
from home.
Yeah.
It's let's say it's starting to get somewhat like a new normal, but people are not let's say openly meeting each other yet. We have a fear. Somehow
Yeah.
we are in that mindset now. As soon as
Yeah.
someone sneezes or someone coughs, we are like, ooh. We have that kind of expression now.
Yeah.
And I guess more and more, we should get used to that expression, because it's been sadly that's the way we
Yeah.
are get used to reacting to people. So that's the way it has been going for the last few months. Going forward, it's going to be the same until we have the cure for that.
Yeah.
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 So how about your end? Is it any different in the context of your work situation, and in the context of how the business is operating at the moment?
Well, it's been a few there's a few changes, right? But at the same time, we have been on like in a decentralized environment for quite a while, right? So right now we've got about 17 people working in different places, and we have always had this type of structure, right? Like you get used to being remote, you try to overcome the challenges of being remote. So remote work is good, but has a lot of challenges, right? You need to find a way so that everyone can be always up to speed with things, and that's something that for sure takes some work. But I think that one positive thing of this crisis is that pretty much every single company is learning to do that. Is stopping to fear that, right? So I think that this is going to give so much freedom to everyone. To us, it's been not that much of a change, as I say. I think that it's going to be like for me, for example, on the kind of the business development front, that's a little bit different, right? You don't have like events to go, you don't have like meetings to go to physically. It's more like very quick meetings, very like the pace is totally different, right? Even though we've been remote for a while, but yeah, it's it's totally different. That's the thing, but we'll have to get used to it for now, right? So I just hope that we can get back to some sort of normality rather soon. But yeah, it's okay. We're all in the same boat. So yeah.
And how about the company itself, Radix? Like, what is it doing at the moment?
So Radix is a company that was founded in 2012 by a
Yeah.
guy called Dan Hughes.
Mhm.
He was basically trying to find the problems that blockchain has, right? So you look into Bitcoin, you see the type of throughput they have, like it has like 7 transactions per second, right? Then he started trying to break it into pieces, like trying to, what if we had a bigger block size? What if we had a different data structure? He started iterating on that to find how to overcome this problem, right? Basically, last year we actually got the milestone where we actually created a network, a DLT that could scale to basically 1.4 million transactions per second, which was basically running the entire Bitcoin blockchain in about a few minutes, right? Like I think it's like 10 minutes. But the thing here as well is like, where does adoption come from, right? And up until now, it's been very hard to see where the adoption was coming from. We've been trying different approaches, right? Like from gaming, healthcare, like different things we've seen in this industry. And one thing that has become clear, like at least in the last maybe a year and a half, 2 years, is that actually we already have an existing customer base that can find product market fit for what we're building, which is the DeFi ecosystem. So the idea basically is, can we actually give another turn on the financial system? Can we try to reduce redundancies? Can we try to avoid some problems that have been so far? And basically, what this means is moving from a handcrafted financial system to kind of an industrial financial system, a place where basically anyone can just come in and can just build their own tools, can just create light modifications of some things that are already standardized to work like that. And it actually means that basically it democratizes the access to these tools, right? We're seeing already, like on Ethereum, which is clearly the biggest platform for DeFi right now, how all these different applications are starting to explode in usage. It's still very much focused to the crypto ecosystem. So basically the people that already are in the ecosystem, not so much for the people outside of it, but you're actually seeing some tools as well trying to capture the attention from people outside, right? All these things, however, are still very much constrained by the technology. So it's not good if you actually get adoption and you can scale to more than, a few tens of transactions per second. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep in mind that the goal is actually, what we need to do is we need to offer to the world these DeFi tools that allows them to, have access to financial products that until now were not available for them, right? While at the same time solving the fundamental bottleneck right now, which is scalability, right? Mm-hmm. So having those things in mind at the same time, that's why we have on the scalability front have developed a new type of consensus algorithm. Well, it's like an evolution of one consensus algorithm called hot stuff. And we've basically developed the way that we're going to be sharding this consensus algorithm so that it can actually scale to billions of people, right? The idea here is that you can't have everything happening on a single network. It has to happen like on a fractured network, which we call shards, right? You don't want every single transaction on the world to be happening and being recorded and validated by exactly the same number of nodes. You want them to be sharing, the load and basically having, some of them be taking care of some transactions, some others taking some transactions, others. But this is something that is going to take some time. So in the meantime, as well, what we're doing is we're trying to find which is the way that we can actually have the biggest impact to the DeFi ecosystem, right? And it's based on, we know some of the building blocks that are necessary, right? So we know that we need some type of representation of steady value, right? So we need some stable coin in the platform. We need a way so that people can exchange between them. So we need stuff like the innovations around constant function market makers. We're very much close to understanding what's happening in that front, and we're very close as well to that ecosystem. We just started a podcast called the DeFi Download, where we basically bringing a lot of people together, just to discuss all these different matters and try to explain how the DeFi world will be affecting the traditional world, right? And yeah, we're basically very much on that front. There's quite a lot going on. We've got, as I said before, 17 people just focused on breaking these two challenges, right? So DeFi, how to actually get traction in that front, and then scalability, how to solve this big problem.
Earlier, you mentioned about the adoption rate, right? Why do you think this traditional, banking system are still reluctant or maybe not coming forward towards the adoption fast enough?
I think that it's still very early, right? So a very important piece here is, trust, obviously, right? And you are trusting not the companies that are providing these products here. You're pretty much trusting the technology that these products are being built on, right? I know that a bank has a very large IT team that's trying to make sure that it's not hackable, it's not breachable. That there's a lot of controls put in place on the IT front, on the compliance front, for example, that make sure that I can't lose the money I have in those products, right? At the same time, here we're in a nascent space where everything is still being built. We're talking just less than a decade to build all these different things, and at a very, very high high rate, right? Which means that you're going to be failing very fast, and you're going to have to be iterating very fast as well. So just you have to move fast, iterate fast, and try to fail fast so that you can keep iterating on those failures. For us, a very big component here is security. And that's why, for example, when we look into how to build on Radix, the way we've designed this is so that there's a finite state machine model, which basically means that we provide and allow third-party developers to develop building blocks that then can be standardized and used by everybody, right? This basically means that you can easily trust something that has already been standardized, because you don't have to be copying it in like a different instance of it and like changing that in order to create your own product, right? So for example, if you look into the example of a token, right? On Ethereum, every time that you want to develop a token, you have to, well, create a copy of the ERC20 contract, right? That's a standard, right? That's very much standardized, very much well understood. But at the same time, when you look into other products that are not so well understood, that opens a lot of, well, problematic, like problems that can appear in terms of bugs, for example, right? So that's why we've seen problems like, for example, the DAO, you know, which was one of the biggest, like one of the earliest one, where basically a small coding error can actually make people lose, you know, millions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
So all these things has reduced trust, and where we have to go is to a point where like all these institutions can trust the systems, know that there's not going to be like a small bug in the code that will make their money just be vanished, right? And what we're talking in these platforms is basically a very big honeypot, right? You must take care of security all the time. You must make sure that nobody's going to be losing money, and that has to be like the #1 priority. But at the same time, it just takes time for companies to trust in a new technology such as this one, right? So it's not surprising to me. I think it's just like a matter of time. I think that what's important right now is that we keep iterating here, and we keep trying to figure out what the problems are. And in the meantime, of course, there's a lot of opportunity, right? There's a lot of new concepts being built. There's a lot of new designs that have very special properties. And that's what I find most interesting, just kind of understanding these properties, understanding where we're going, and trying to see how we can use this to actually, you know, like drive adoption, right?
When you look at the client that who are consuming your services at the moment, I'm sure over the years you would have gathered data that would give you some indication of different challenges that you might face in the future. Can you elaborate where you feel like, okay, this is the area we need to keep on improving?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that usability is a big like work to be done in this space, right? Like right now we've got a lot of different wallets that are trying to make that much better. Ultimately, you have to take control of your keys, right? Your private keys. There's some people that know how to use hardware wallets, but that's not something that's very user friendly, right? Like it's very difficult to get my grandmother to understand how to use a hardware wallet, for example. So like I think that in the future, we're going to see a lot of different innovations to try to lower the barrier in that front, right? Like, for example, for the treatment of keys. Another one for me, very important, is the fees, right? And it's very much related with the throughput. The problem here is that if you really have a network that is bottlenecked, where that has a lot of value, that wants to move very quickly, but at the same time doesn't have enough space, bandwidth to move, then basically the cost of using that network actually starts to become very, very large, right? Like right now, for example, we know that like the cryptocurrency market cap is nowhere near the top that it got in 2017, right? So the kind of the attention onto it is not as big as back then. It will get back up, I think. But at that point, that means that the fees will have a bigger impact that they have right now. And right now, just, if you want to trade on some of these decentralized exchanges, you're actually like easily spending $1.50, $2, even $3 just to do a very simple exchange, right? So the fees are actually becoming pretty much unbearable for a lot of users that maybe, if you have like a few $100s on crypto, you don't want to spend a few of them just, doing a trade, right? So that's one of the things that we want to focus as well. So like alongside with the throughput, we want to make sure that fees remain low, and then basically that you always have the best liquidity possible. So the thing is, you've got mainly three things that we believe that will make DeFi grow, right? And Radix wants to focus on those three things. One of them is access, right? We need to make sure that we've got a very user-centric, vertically integrated approach. We need to make sure that ramping assets, for example, is very simple, what I said before, right? So we need those stable coins on the platform. right? At the same time, if you don't have anything to do with that, so if you don't have like an exchange where you can actually go and do that, then you don't have liquidity. Like you can't do anything with it, for example, right? If you want to be trading, right? So liquidity is another one that we think that is key here. We will be building, as I said, like a constant function market maker that will allow people to trade very easily between them. That's something that we believe will have a lot of innovations in the coming years, right? And we really want to make sure that basically anyone that's on the platform that has access to the platform has access as well to this liquidity, right? Finally, the other one is just choice, right? We need to make sure that people have the choice to use all these different products that we're building, right? And that's where the standardized components come in. Like we need to make it so that people can easily move from one to the other, can easily compose them, right? So one of the things that to me is most exciting about DeFi is the way that developers anywhere in the world can just pick like pieces from other people's work and just put them together to create new things, right? So I can just go and borrow here to get, I can just create a stable coin here to then, borrow some money from it. Like there's quite a lot of things that can be done here that can't be done in the traditional system because all these companies, they don't have an open API, right? They actually require very cumbersome contracts and very cumbersome deals, and they have very closed systems that don't allow people to compose things between them, right? So yeah, I think that with these three things, we're going to see some like the type of innovation that will make it so that users actually don't have that much problem to come anymore, right? I'm not saying that DeFi will be for like immediately for those type of users. I think that people will be building very quickly towards that direction, right? And that's where we want to focus, basically.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, usability is going to be a key. One of the things that you pointed out pretty interesting is like there's a large segment of people who do not understand this space at all, right? Mm-hmm. Or they don't want to even know. Let's put it this way. I want to sort of give an example, like you gave an example of your grandmother. But at the same time, I would like to give you an example of my own dad. Like if I explain that, like there's a Bitcoin, which is basically it goes into half every 4 years or so. Then how do I explain those people, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
How do I say like it's something that would become into half?
Yeah, so I got into this space in 2013, right? I started looking, like at that point it was actually very difficult even for me to really grasp my head around like the whole concept. But actually, like I come to a conclusion after basically telling this to like Eli fiving this to a lot of people that actually it's not even that necessary, right? Like that you've got a scarce supply. Like for example, everybody understands how to use the internet, but not how it works. Right. So most of the questions that a lot of people have are just like, those are very low level technical questions. Right. If I want to explain mining, the way I do it basically is as it say, you've got 1,000 people in a room trying to convince each other that the transactions that they're proposing are correct. Right. So what do? You just tell them a rule. Right. You just say, everybody shut up and only speak if you find, like you're clicking like a timer or something that a random number generation system that just gives you like 18 zeros at the beginning, right? And then you can talk, right? Until then you're just completely quiet, right?
Yeah.
But actually that's a lot of waste as well, right? Like the amount of energy that you have to spend to do that, right? To be clicking to get 18 zeros on a random number, that's very, very, very high, right? So I'm very much excited as well about all the innovations that we're seeing around that front. For example, the proof of stake innovation, right? Which actually completely changes the model, but actually I think it aligns more the incentives with everyone in the system, right? So for example, Radix is going to be a proof of stake system, not on the consensus algorithm, but on the Sybil prevention mechanism. So basically, how do I actually know who is in this room, right? We say 1,000 people, but what's stopping someone to just come in with, you know, 1 million people into this room. Well, in this room, there's just not space for 1 million people, right? But on, like, if we're just like on the internet, there's room for as many people as you want. So something like proof of stake, where, you know, basically the amount of coins that you have gives you the voting power to see which transactions are valid or not, right? That's, I think, a very simple way and a very aligned way for everyone to be able to participate there. Yeah, I don't know. It's just like, just depends on the level that we're talking here, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I had a good session with one of the other leaders in this particular space of a particular company. And he said, like, Pramod, maybe, you know, like, he echoed what you said, maybe there's no need to explain them. Maybe we should talk about value, right? If you say, okay, you know, instead of talking about these jargons that that even we struggle to explain to someone, and I think we should just talk about the value that it delivers, right? Maybe we talk about efficiency, and we talk about things that are going to help us to send money to person to person, and maybe we should talk in those lines where we are just talking about value, and that helps, perhaps. You know, that's what he came down to. What do you say about that?
No, I completely agree. It's like I said, with the internet, everybody knows how to use it, but they don't know how it works, right? And here, they don't know how to use it yet. I mean, I think that a lot of people know that they can send money with this, right? That's something that I think is already well known, right? Very few of them know that, oh, you know, if I'm actually holding these assets, maybe I can, you know, get a loan and putting them as a collateral, for example, right? My bank doesn't allow me to put Bitcoin and get a loan, right? But thanks to this new like system, the DeFi space, the tools that the DeFi space is bringing with it, I can do this new thing that until now I couldn't do, right? After all, we're talking here about the internet of value. We're talking how will, you know, even machines like trade between themselves, right? How am I going to be streamed money? How can I know that you know, the rules of the system won't change because, you know, there's a small line in the contract that I haven't been able to read? Now here you potentially have those small lines in, like, you know, AKA bugs, right? But at the same time, those are publicly accessible to everybody, so they can be audited, they can be checked. At least you know that like, well, everyone's using actually the same building blocks, not kind of different, right? So the standardization of that. If right now I get a mortgage, my bank's, you know, contract will look totally different than your bank's contract, right? So what are those differences? Will I be able to understand that? Here it's much easier to understand. So again, the barrier of entry will be lowered very much, right? One thing that I'm super interested about is like basically all the front-facing stuff, right? So you're going to see a lot of different wallets. Maybe they won't call themselves wallets, but basically applications that are just like connecting to DeFi and allowing people to just, you know, hey, you give me your dollars and I'm going to give you yield for those dollars. You know, they are insured, they are properly custodied, right? But actually what I'm doing underneath to provide you those dollars, I'm not printing anything. I'm just going and borrowing it to someone that has the demand for that. Why do they have the demand? Because there's things that they can do that they can't do on the traditional space, right? Which is basically, for example, getting a loan on their Bitcoin, right? A lot of people that have Bitcoin, they want to kind of, you know, they don't want to sell their positions, but they need the liquidity right now, right? So through this mechanism and basically paying a little bit more interest than they would be paying to, you know, to a bank, which doesn't want that those Bitcoins as collateral actually, right? So that's how these applications can provide better deals, even better returns that other, like, traditional companies can, right? So it's those inefficiencies, it's those things that because of, well, different type of fears and different type of regulations, which are absolutely necessary, but at the same time makes things much slower to move, right? Can't be done, right? I think that what's going to happen, I think that adoption still will take a little while. There's still, like I said, a lot of risk here, right? Like there's a lot of bugs that keep coming up, a lot of different approaches that keep coming up, but it's good. Like what we need right now is just to be iterating as much as possible, trying to find out what works, what doesn't work, what are the best, like, you know, it's good that we're learning by doing, instead of just, you know, like I see that, for example, in the health space where, finding a vaccine for the coronavirus just takes forever because of the regulations, which of course they have to be there, right? We don't want bad vaccines to be distributed all over the place, right? But for sure as well, stops some type of innovation, right? Here, you're not harming anyone, just people that want to use those tools, they understand that they are under risk. And we must explain that that's the case. We just must work as much as we can to reduce that risk. Like I said, for example, with that, just trying to make it so that you have a set of building blocks that are super well tested, right? Instead of allowing anyone to come and like develop their own, right? Which we will allow to as well, but at the beginning we need the fundamentals, right? We need the fundamental building blocks that allow people to do those things in a standardized fashion, like for example a token, right? So if I want to create a token and it's basically just like well, in this case an API call, it's just much easier for any developer to use, which actually reduces the friction as well. It just allows anyone to come in and use this technology rather than spend months of learning curve to understand a totally new technology. So it's a lot of different things. Like we'll see on the technical space, a lot of innovation on the on lower level, like with scalability, for example, the new programming models that are coming up. We've got there's this space is very broad and it's just getting even broader every day. There's so much innovation in every single layer.
One thing that I'm quite curious about is loan and banking and so forth. When I'm staying home now, I think I asked this to previous guests as well. When I'm home now, I'm doing a lot of things that I'm, let's say, buying online and so forth. And I'm kind of thinking, when would be that moment when I can literally buy a house from home, just sitting at home?
So the question for the house is a bit special, right? So if you're talking about you want to buy like real estate, right?
Yes.
You wanna buy property not to live in, right? I would say like maybe you can buy a fraction of it, right? That's something that I already know that there's some companies that are actually working on that, right? Basically, what you have is basically a company that owns this property or like a part of this property, and basically tokenizes those that part of the property, right? That doesn't mean that the notary that you can skip going to the notary if you actually want to own that house to the law, right? You as a person, right? And I think that's very very long way off, basically. Like the governments have to migrate their existing systems, which if someone is very slow to move, will always have to be the government, basically. Just the risk is too big, right? So I think that at the same time there's a lot of components in here. Like for example, you going to the notary to buy the house. Well, the notary is actually making sure that you're not being forced into something, that you are who you say you are, right? There's a lot of things there that governance wants to let go, and I don't think that tokenizing it will be helping there. So as an investment, I think that there's already ways that you can kind of use that as proper ownership. I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Because I was thinking, right? So as we are, as you said, we are tokenizing, those contracts. So let's say if we are able to do that, and perhaps like you said, governance is going to be crucial there. But I'm also thinking, I'm sure from the banking perspective, the traditional bankers, just to even get to the loan, right? So just to even get to the loan, not to even buy the house, right? A lot of times there is a lot of manual work involved. Right? I'm more in line with how the traditional banking is still, in that, let's say, traditional thought, where they are not even recognizing that something like issuing a loan can take X amount of time. Perhaps for a home, buying home, it might be applied because you have regulations and whatnot. But just to get a maybe personal loan or I don't know, maybe car loan or something.
So
perhaps
there's different things there, right? So you've got that. The reason why they take so long, I mean, there's many reasons, right? But for sure, one is that whatever you put as collateral normally is not liquid. Normally, you don't have a liquid asset that you can already put there. So if you get a mortgage on a house and you maybe like put the house like as part of the mortgage, they won't be able to sell it easily, right? It will take some time. There's going to be some loss the faster that they actually try to sell the house, right? The thing here is that you actually have assets that are highly liquid. Basically, you can sell a Bitcoin at any point in time without the doubt that you're going to be able to sell it, right? That's a very big difference here that I'm afraid that they can't easily solve. Most of the assets that you will be getting like a loan from won't be liquid, right? For those who are like, I don't know, there's regulations, there's the tactic, like the operations problems of that, the way that they move the money. Like we're talking about, like the banking sector is built upon layers and layers and layers that have been built over the last 20, 30 years, right? Of code. Most of them can't be touched. Like it's very difficult for them to jump into the middle of their banking core and changing things here and there because, well, basically the people that built that actually left the company maybe 10 years ago. Right? Probably like technologies have changed a lot as well, so it's very hard to hire people that like those technologies. So what I was talking about before about the composability, right? So being able to get, your company is offering this financial service, my company is offering another financial service. Someone can just come in and just use both of us companies in one single transaction, right? Imagine how you would have to do this in the traditional world. First of all, you'll need a lot of contracts between ones and the others and KYC double, and like there's going to be a lot of problems in there, right? A lot of lawyers involved as well, right? At the same time, if you actually want to make it programmatic so that you can actually in one single transaction do this, you actually need a very, very close integration between all these different parties, right? So you need, in this case, one bank and, this other financial company, and their APIs need to be very closely integrated so that someone can actually do a transaction between those two, right? So it's kind of like the internet, right? You know that on the internet, you've got APIs, you've got like URLs where you just write something, and after writing something and clicking enter, you're gonna get the time. What time is it now, right? So you pop one API, like one URL that you click on, and that gives you the time right now, right? So in a similar fashion here, everyone will be able to do that, and that putting together, I just don't know how the traditional financial system can actually achieve that. I don't think that that's doable, like on the fundamentals of the technology that it's built on,
Yeah. Perhaps that's accurate, because the other way around perhaps could be that they acquire someone who's up and coming, right? So that could be one of the alternative route for them.
Yeah. I think it's a very common tactic for them as well, right? I think that a lot of them must be thinking precisely that. It's like, like they have large amounts of cash that they can spend into buying fintech companies, for example, right? Mm-hmm. And I see that as a good thing. Like that actually makes it more, how do you call it? Basically, will help this innovation, right? That you can build something that you can sell to a bank. It will be for the betterment of the bank, but actually it's for the betterment of everybody. So just today, for example, I opened an account in a bank, and what the process was, upload just a couple of photos of my ID card, and then a video call with one of their agents, right? Mm-hmm. That took me less than 10 minutes for sure, right? Instead of having to go there physically and everything. I'm sure that there's quite a few startups that are like just involved in that process, right? Or maybe they built it themselves, but like it's good to see how the fintech world is actually pushing the traditional companies to be advancing much better. I think that a lot of people absolutely trust this bank that I just got the account on. And I'm very happy for them that they will be able to have a better service from now on, right? So I see it as a very good thing anyway. That's what I mean.
Yeah. And as we are looking into this particular space, I'm looking at this particular time, like the COVID situation, and I am a consultant for a financial institution as well as insurance. So I'm sort of thinking the amount of call that is received by the insurance company at this point in time. And I was talking to some of the leaders from America, and then they sort of, started using AI for more or less AI-enabled conversational, chatbot. Let's keep it that way. So they say it helps them, and perhaps this is also one way to say that we are trying to at least answer some of the common questions from our customers using some of the tools as such, like AI and robotics and whatnot. Right. And how do you see this kind of technology playing a role in future, especially in the banking sector?
So it's clear that the improvement that this causes is massive, right? For the user experience, right? Like I said today, just like setting up this account in less than 10 minutes, it's ridiculous, right? If you compare it to what was on like a year ago, right? Or maybe like 3 years ago, right? It's a very big change. At the same time, like I can't even imagine the type of information that these companies will be getting from this, right? As you know, well, insurance companies can actually learn a lot are based on data, right? And basically having a chatbot that actually can guide the conversation into telling the information that you want to understand, for sure will be better as well for these businesses, right? I think that there's a balance to strike there, and clearly there's a lot of like companies that have abused the power of information, I think. Especially when they're like, well, basically painting themselves as, oh, I'm a friendly chatbot, and I'm actually just trying to find a way to see what should I do with you, if I should like drop you as a customer or not, right? So I think that AI will have massive challenges in the very short future. Stuff like, for example, well, deepfakes, for example, I think will be a very big challenge, right? So I like with upcoming elections and upcoming like all the things that will happen in the next few years will be quite bizarre to the eyes of today, right? I just hope that we find this balance, that we find a balance where we've got something that's fair to everyone, that's morally correct, and that is at the same time profitable, right? So and I think that's something that just like people need to work to achieve altogether, right? It's difficult. I feel like there should be more concern in the public to understand what this actually means, right? It's like all these applications, for example, to age yourself, right? So you take a photo and they send you a photo of yourself being old, right? It's just a massive way to get information from people. Give me your name, give me your email, take a photo, and now I've got everything I need to actually be like doing a lot of things. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. I just like in that mix of things that I hope will happen is just like people will become more conscious about this, right? People will see that maybe not everything I see on the internet is something I should be trusting, right? Maybe I should not be sharing everything on the internet. But it's very difficult because here you've got like the utility of using these systems at the same time, right? Like it's just so convenient to use all these things. So yeah, I think as we move forward, we'll need to be relying on technology even more and more. I'm not against that. I just hope that as a society we'll learn how to deal with that in a responsible fashion.
If I think about privacy, of course, there's as soon as you are exposed to the internet or through any kind of devices that you have, you are prone to such issues, right? You are exposed to the internet, your data can be manipulated and so forth. And how do you see that this particular challenge can be addressed by blockchain as a technology?
So I think that the first blocker in my mind there is actually throughput again. So the more information you want to store, the faster you want to store it. Like for these systems to be, viable, they actually have to be taking care of a lot of data, right? And the more there's lower the system and the more expensive in terms of fees, for example, the less you can actually do this, right? At the same time, I think that in the future we're going to see systems where, well, let's put it differently. I think that this technology has absolutely improved improved a lot of people's understanding of the concept of, like cryptography, right? Now, a lot of people understand what a private key is and like a public key is, right? A lot of people understand how one thing becomes the other, like, and then, oh, I have an address and I know that I'm the only one that has access to this address, right? I think that that's actually something that probably my mother understands now, and probably she didn't just, just a few years ago. So that's a start, right? We're learning that right now it's very difficult to manage the keys, but in the future, I think it will become easier, right? As the keys are more easy to manage, then that means that, there's going to be already implicit, like more privacy just in the communications between people, right? Mm-hmm. We're seeing a lot of efforts from so many different companies trying to make sure that communications are encrypted, at least, between peers. I think that's a very good advancement, right? I think, for me, the problem of deepfakes will be like a next level problem of this, which will completely change how people see what they share on the internet, right? So the more I share about myself, the easier it is for bots, basically, to just come in and create assets from me, right? I can just, make a 3D video of me saying whatever stupid thing, right? Mm-hmm. I think that people will be very much reluctant to do this. And then I'm very interested in, basically, there's a couple projects that are looking into making sure that if you have your key, you're the only one that has access to your data, right? Mm-hmm. One of them, for example, is called Urbit, which is basically, you have your kind of personal space that's based on your key, right? So you've got your digital space, and then everything you do, everything you do kind of in the internet is being stored in your space. You're the only one that has access to that. But then if someone requests some of this information, then they just exactly ask for that information, and potentially those calculations can be done in your space without being able to take out the information outside of your space, right? So there's things like that. It's just so early and so difficult to explain and so difficult to create actual businesses around this at this point in time, I think, just because people don't see the need of it, right? But I think that very soon we're going to see like reasons to see this a little bit more. There's a book by Neil Stephenson called The Fall, and it really focuses on this, right? There's like deepfakes and how it will be changing the face of the internet. It's very, very interesting. I think that's one of my biggest concerns, like for the next 3 years, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting and fascinating, especially in the financial sector, that you cannot just ignore the development that is happening at the moment, and yet if you're not curious about that, then perhaps you don't know anything, right? So as soon as you have some curiosity there, then you get to know quite a bit, right? So
yeah.
And then the information is too much to handle, right? So it's interesting the way the development is happening.
Yeah, it's going to take time, but like, 25 years ago, nobody was using a smartphone, right? Yeah, we didn't have Google Maps, right? So people learn very quickly. It's just that we see the live in real time, right? But if we think like, what will people understand about cryptography in 10 years? Well, it's going to be much more understanding than we have right now, right? And I think that crypto is the thing that's actually fostering that the most, right? So I see this as a very good thing. It's just like I said, we're just seeing it in real time. So it just seems like it's moving slow. But actually, if you look back, as I said, 20 years or 10 years, it's so different, so different.
Yeah. Especially, I am from the era where we didn't used to have internet. And then I have a daughter who said to me, like, Dad, like, what was the iPhone version when you were like 2 or 3? So and I'm saying, like, there was no phone,
Yes.
Right?
Yes. The modems were the thing back then for me, basically. Well, before that,
even before that, like, if you think about the time, like we got to we got to the internet, and it was so interesting, right? Like we used to get to internet, even though there were like only few web pages, but we used to scroll around those pages, and I used to feel so great about that, right? And now we're
for
talking
them to load.
yes. And then now,
a JPEG just loading line by line, row by row, or someone calling your landline and your internet gone. Basically.
Yes, exactly. And then my mom used to swear at me for the bills and so forth. So that used to be days, right?
I think 5G as well will be a massive thing here, right? And about privacy as well. Basically, with 5G, like companies will know exactly where you are all the time, right? Oh, he stopped for 5 seconds in front of the shop, right? So I think advertising will change greatly as well. Like, I think that will have a very big impact on privacy, right? So hopefully we're gonna see devices that take care of that a little bit more. Right now, like companies that have access to this data know a lot about you, right? And they can easily sell this because, well, probably you didn't even know that you signed up for anything around any of those things, right? And I feel like for sure there has to be more regulation on that. Like, for example, I'm quite comfortable that the European area has the GDPR stuff. It makes me a little bit more comfortable knowing that for sure, at least they have to remain conscious of what they're doing with the data that they collect from me, right? But it will always be about, what type of utility, what type of convenience I get of doing one thing or the other. And if you want to have all the services that 5G will bring with it, you will probably have to be subduing some of that, privacy for it. So,
And talking about all this different development, I'm sure there are a lot of startups that are there. They're doing some interesting stuff. Do you want to talk about any particular startup you feel like, they are doing something very interesting?
To me, a very, very interesting one is called REN, which is a protocol that basically communicates protocols, right? So if I want to send my Bitcoin to Ethereum right now, there's very few ways to do that, right? So normally I would just be trusting someone to be like holding those Bitcoins and then kind of creating them a representation of them on another ledger. That's very good and that's very useful. At the same time, it's still very much centralized, right? What REN is doing is that they're basically making it so that the entire network, their network, is sharing the keys between them in a secure fashion, so that you can not just have the representation of the Bitcoin, but you actually know that, well, for sure, there's one Bitcoin there, right? 100%. You don't need any auditing company. It's so I think that that's going to bring a lot of changes to the industry. You've got that. Well, if they can communicate enough protocols, then you can basically send Ether to Radix, for example. Then there's so much different things and so much innovation that you're going to be able to do, because then so people build, so developers until now build on one platform and another based on the capital in that platform, right? If I'm a developer and I have to choose between building here or there, I will normally choose where the user base is, because that will be my customer base, right? But with innovations such as this, then it's more about the technology. So if you actually need throughput, and if you actually need low fees, and if you actually like this programming environment that Radix is giving for you, then it's going to be very easy for you to use the DeFi, to kind of offer to your users the DeFi applications that Radix will have on top, through basically just sending assets from one to the other, right? So that's to me a very big innovation that's going to be like massively disrupting to the industry, right? They launched this thing called REN BTC, which for now it just takes Bitcoin and like kind of converts it to Ethereum, right? But that basically will make it very easy for anyone to deposit their BTC into the DeFi space, which right now they couldn't do freely, right? Or they had to be very much controlled, right? I think that in the next few months as well, we're going to see a lot of innovation around staking, for example, right? We're working on a couple of projects around this, because we think that the kind of limitations that you've got right now when you're staking a coin are very, very big, right? So first of all, you have to have your tokens locked up, right? That you can move them for a little bit, for quite a while. That means that either there's like a minimum like time that you have to have them there, or actually if you move them, you're gonna like completely lose your rewards, right? At the same time, there's like minimum thresholds that allow you to participate only if you have these many coins, for example. I don't think that that's very fair to a lot of people, you know, as just like the barrier is too high. So we're looking into ways that we can actually kind of improve this and like, again, democratize staking, right? Just basically like unleashing it. So we're working on this right now. We'll also have an announcement on this front. But yeah, I don't know. There's really like a lot of things that I'm pretty interested, like very, very interested about. Another one, for example, is constant function market makers, right? Which is, for those who don't know, is like you've got, until now, you're used to exchanges that are order book based, right? Like, oh, I want to buy at this price, this much, right? And someone either takes my offer, or I have to be taking the offer of someone else, right? So, the thing here is that if you change that model to a model where there's no such a thing as orders, but basically just people that pull together their funds, and other people can just come in, take either one of those sides, pay a fee for that exchange, right? And basically the business model for the people that are providing liquidity is just the fees that come in, right? That creates very, very highly liquid markets, right? Just makes it so much easier. Like the user experience on this is so much better instead of having to basically wait for orders to hit, right? That's something that there has been a lot of evolutions on. Like if you look into the biggest DeFi applications right now, like the number one would be Uniswap, right? Which is this one, and another one precisely would be Curve, right? Which basically takes two stable coins, which in theory they should have kind of the same value, right? Which means that if people come and take my coin, or like if people come and take USDT or take USDC from my pool, right? It doesn't really matter because it always should be, you know, about $1, right? But I'm always getting those fees, right? And this basically means that now you have a huge market, like with highly liquid assets that you can change from one to the other, because you know you just have to pay the fee, which in this case is like 0.3% or something per trade, right? So they're not that cheap yet. They will, I think it will become much cheaper. At the same time, like the liquidity is getting very, it's getting sufficient now, and it will be much bigger in the long run. There's still some innovations there. Like there's the problem of impermanent loss, for example, which I believe it's a very big problem, and that's something we're looking into. And there's some projects as well, like Bancor, for example, that has basically maybe not solved it, but reduced it to a way that now a lot of people that until now couldn't participate because of this problem. So impermanent loss is basically, as I'm offering my tokens for the people to take them, right? I'm offering my tokens so that I'm enabling this market, but other people can just come in and buy them from me, right? Which means that I don't have them anymore. And therefore, if the price goes up, I just feel like I missed out because, you know, I sold them before. So it's just like a way to sell them on the way up, right? So yeah, there's some innovations on that front. I think that will change a lot of things as well. So these three things, I think, for me are the key right now.
Ren and Uniswap, and what was the third one you said?
The Bancor. So Uniswap is a very simple constant function market maker, which basically says, you know, you have to put 50-50 in dollar value, right? So you put, you know, 1 Ether and 200 USDC, right? For example, and then anyone can come in and buy your Ether and just, you know, put 200 USDC on top, and there's some slippage there, right? So it depends on the size of the pool, the amount of slippage that any trader will get, right? But they have made it so that the weighting is not 50. Bancor has made it so that the weighting is not 50-50, but it's a dynamic weighting, right? So depending on the price and how much is moving, it will be kind of weighting the pool more towards one side or the other. It's pretty like complex system, but I think that's precisely what has been holding this part of the industry back a little bit. I think that will be very interesting. So like a combination of those two basically means that you can now, well, basically trade anything on anything with high liquidity. right? You can trade Bitcoin on Ethereum with a massive liquidity, and knowing that the fees will be rather low and the slippage will be very low as well, right? So maybe you're paying maybe a little bit more on fees, right? Like on exchanges like 0.2% instead of here like north of 3%. But at the same time, the slippage will be so low in the long run that it's probably going to be just I think actually beating the centralized exchanges. Like to me, the experience of going to a centralized exchange right now, it's something that I dread very much. It's difficult to I have to send the funds from my hardware wallet to here. I have to wait. Then okay, now I'll put some orders here and there. Right now they have to hit, or I'm going to be paying much more in fees. It's just too many steps, right? Where here is like I connect my hardware wallet in a few clicks, I'm done, basically.
Yeah.
So much more user friendly.
Yeah, it's interesting though, the one that you just described. I think the Bancor, I guess. I'm just like quickly going over it and trying to see like what it offers, because I'm also curious about buying Bitcoin and so forth. But even though I didn't make any money there, and maybe I started when it was already in the slump or something. So.
Yeah. There is a lot of innovation, right? Like you've got companies like Crypto.com, for example, that has, I think it's over 2 million users right now, right? So they're very much focused on adoption, right? Like, can we get a lot of, because I think that a big blocker for a lot of people is, okay, I'm going to send my money here. I'm going to buy this thing called Bitcoin, but actually, what can I do with it, right? And the answer of, you can actually spend it. So you know that it may be going up or down in price. So it's kind of an investment for them. But actually, you can easily spend it with a card. I think that is just like so much simpler for people to understand and to accept, right? So they're building so much stuff. They're just building, an exchange on the wallet, like a non-custodial wallet. They're building their own blockchain, basically. They're doing a lot of things on that front. I'm very impressed with their work. There's just, like I said, there's a lot of different things going on different layers, right? So you've got more than some that are more going to the adoption, some that are trying to get, for example, kind of adoption on the third world, for example, right? Like in like hyperinflation countries, for example. There's just so much going on right now. I'm very looking forward to seeing as well what Libra will be doing, right? That will be a very big game changer, regardless of like kind of the size that they can deploy it at. Like, they're taking some compromises here or there, but they've been very smart in the way that they have approached this, and for sure will be a very good driver for the industry, right? So that will make a lot of people understand what a private key is, right? So very excited about that too.
And what do you think about something like Revolut? And they've been in the existence for quite some time now. Now at least there's a big buzz around their startup as well. How do you see themselves positioning, with all the new innovations going forward?
So the thing that they've done really well is they've captured the user base, right? They already have those users. By saying that this card is for traveling, for example, or this card is for savings, for example, they have a very big user base and that really understands what they're trying to do, right? To be honest, I don't know how they're going to be adopting like these new opportunities, right? So, for example, are they going to be integrating with DeFi to provide more yield to their users, maybe, right? I think that given they have a very big focus light on them, right? A lot of regulators are looking at the way that they do things. So I don't know to what extent they will be able to actually be aggressive on that front, right? While companies that are kind of crypto native companies are already built like understanding that type of regulation, right? So I don't know. I'm pretty sure that there will be, very like soonish they will start to kind of leveraging these new opportunities. I don't know to how much of a rush they are, right? Stuff like Robinhood, for example, is actually doing a very good job there. It's starting to it's a very big on-ramp for crypto for a lot of people, right? Just like so much so convenient to a lot of people. So very happy about it. I think that for now it's probably the thing that has been pushing the traditional finance the most, right? Like I think that without the Revoluts of the world, we wouldn't have this 10-minute process to sign up on my traditional bank for instance. So we'll see how it plays out.
I see Revolut as more of a upgrade version of the traditional banking system, more modern, but yet it's not decentralized finance, I would say. They still need to do the catch up there, and I'm definitely looking forward to new innovations that would actually say, okay, this is actually disruptive. We cannot definitely say let's say companies like N26 and Revolut are yet disruptive, in that.
Yeah, it's going to be quite mind-boggling the pace at which they will be having to adapt or potentially be disrupted, right? Like for most of the people, like these are completely new companies, right? That this is like growing so fast, and there's already something chasing them. But no, like I think I would revert back to what I said before about the bank, like the traditional banking. I agree with you. I think it is like upgraded traditional banking, but at the same time, I just think that all these tools will just make the traditional banking better. I don't think that we need to be killing the traditional banking. Like I said, a lot of people need that trust, need that hand holding, right? My grandmother doesn't want to have a ledger, basically, right? A hardware wallet, right? My mother wants to have someone that speaks her language, that she can go to and say, hey, I missed the key for this, and like this can be recovered, no problem. So I think that it's a very, very big value for a lot of people that we can't lose, and they will just be profiting from this, which is good. It will, like I said, it will just drive more innovation.
And how do you see the future of Radix?
So right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to see how to capture this adoption, right? So we're very much focused on how can we actually build something that will drive this demand for applications that have a real utility, right? So that's where DeFi comes in, right? So trying to build these building blocks that everyone can then easily use and compose between them, right? So that people can actually basically make business out of this. That's we believe a very strong driver, right? Like we want everyone to be able to make business out of building on Radix, right? We're gonna be we're working very, very hard to launch as soon as possible. Very soon there's going to be news on that front, and in the meantime we're basically focused on understanding how can we do it to kind of lower the bridge, right? That's kind of what I said about, for example, the staking, right? So if you have a way so that you can basically have a better way of staking assets, you have a way that allows them to be liquid, that allows them to be tradable, that allows them to be used in DeFi, for example, right? We think that that's actually something that a lot of people that are already in the industry will really want to use. It's something that in the way that we're proposing this that doesn't exist yet, right? So it's pretty much like the way to make sure, like it's basically a vehicle so that we can actually set the wheels in motion to get the adoption for Radix in the long run, right? But it's something that it's a marathon, right? Like you have to have a very long-term strategy to be able to drive to get there. You need the technology to be in place. You need the products to be in place so that you can actually be capturing the user's interest, not for speculative reasons, but actually for real usage, right? And that's what we're focused on right now. That's what we're trying to build and achieve now.
So Albert, I think that's pretty much for this particular session. First of all, thank you so much for joining this session.
Thank you, Pramod. Thank you.
It was quite wonderful conversations, and you are quite knowledgeable, and I get to learn a lot from you. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. Hopefully we have new things to talk about at that point in time.
I'm sure there's just so much stuff going on. Just like, yeah, we'll keep in the loop, and like, yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Looking forward to talking to you again.